What's up, guys? Welcome back to MCubed. Of course, I am Schmook, and we're here to talk The Mandalorian Season 1. This is our Take It or Skip It, and this is a special starting point for our big week of Star Wars content because, of course, May the 4th be with us all. Alright, let's get right into it. So, The Mandalorian Season 1, the first Disney Plus Star Wars show, and the first Star Wars show to ever come out. And it started off with a huge bang. Like, I just remember, like, when this show was first coming out, that watching that first episode, I'm like, whoa, we are in for a treat. Because you get to see that underworld of Star Wars. You see this badass bounty hunter just go and do his thing, and he's just a lone wolf, you know? And then at the end of the first episode, we get introduced to Grogu, who's a Yoda species, right? And that's when I'm like, after watching the first episode, I'm like, whoa, we are in for something crazy. Because, of course, this is going to be a force-sensitive creature, and I'm curious where they would go from there. So, of course, it's a 8-episode season. I think it's my second favorite season. I'll probably do an end of my season 3 video ranking them all. But, I mean, this brought me back into, like, what I loved about Star Wars. Because, of course, I had a bad taste in my mouth of the sequels, honestly. Specifically The Last Jedi, because I don't think The Rise of Skywalker was out yet. So I'm trying to think of the timeline. I believe Rise of Skywalker was on the horizon of coming out. Regardless, but you have The Mandalorian, right? It's written and made by Jon Favreau, who of course has done big movies like Iron Man, Elf, Zathura. So it's like I've always known he's been this incredible filmmaker, right? Because everything I've seen him do has been gold. And I just know watching from the first episode, I'm like, oh, okay, John, cook. Just cook, bro. But we eventually get to this crazy point with the show where I thought it would be like a nice little, just like, you know, each episode would be like a different bounty, but then it becomes this bigger story where, of course, you get the Empire involved, you get cloning involved, and this just all sets up what we see in later seasons, right? And we get introduced to one of the better Star Wars villains in all of the media with Moff Gideon, who I think is a fantastic character. It's well played by an unbelievable actor, Giancarlo Esposito, who is, of course, plays Gus in Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. And he's an unbelievable actor. He's one of the best voices out there. He brings this terrifying presence, right? And we find out at the end of the season he has the dark saber. And it's like, oh, this is getting crazy, huh? But yeah, overall, I think season 1 was just a great way to bring us back into this world of Star Wars that we love. Like, it doesn't have to be all about the Skywalkers or that legacy, right? And that's what was really good about this season. It gets into other stuff later on, like throughout the later seasons, like where it brings us closer to the big universe at this time, right? When it comes to characters, of course, if you see the Last of Us video I did, one of my favorite genres is the idea of found family. Like, again, like The Walking Dead, The Last of Us. I think Toy Story is a great example of that too. Or just almost anything in fiction where it's like you can meet some people and they just become, they're more than blood, you know? Like, there's something about that connection, that chemistry, that wavelength. And that's what I love about this show, is that there's this guy who's like very lone wolf, and then he just starts to he falls in love with this kid that he has to protect, even though this kid's like 50 years old, but it still feels like his child, right? And that's why I love saying, like, he'll do anything to protect this little green guy, right? But yeah, but Grogu and Din Djarin, of course, in season 1, we don't know that his name's Grogu. We find that out in season 2, which we'll talk about. But Grogu is just such a great character. But again, we get to know who Din Djarin is. He's like, again, he's this bounty hunter. He seems to be well known to an extent. Like, he seems to be that guy who's just able to get it done. What I do love about this show is that it seems to have a lot of like D&D aspects to it. I feel like Jon Favreau is a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. And just like the idea of like, oh, there's the overarching quest, right? The main objective, which is like taking care of this kid and like protecting him from the Empire, right? But then there's just these fun side quests like, oh, to protect this little village, blah, blah, blah. I know one of my favorite episodes in this season was episode 3, which is of course more of like a main episode where he gives Grogu up to get all this Beskar, and he's able to level up like a D&D where he gets this full Beskar plate and he looks sick. I love that he constantly upgrades and gets new equipment and like weaponry throughout the whole show, which I think is again that brings into the D&D aspect. But yeah, that episode's sick to me because that's where he like eventually he gets this Beskar, he has the armor, make him new armor, and he just goes in he kills all these stormtroopers and saves Grogu, and then all these Mandos come in to save the day, which is sick. And then, of course, again, one of my favorite side episodes, because, like, again, it feels like main quests and side quests. I like the episode of him saving this village, which is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. Mando seems to find himself a little peace, but he can't be with her. But, of course, the last two episodes, I'm like, oh, this is a show that gets crazy. Like, you have Moff Gideon coming in, you have this IG unit that gets reformed. Like, from the beginning of the first episode, it's like this guy that wants to take out Grogu. Then he gets his memory reformed or whatever from this Ugnaught, right? I can't remember his name, but great character. But we get IG-11, who's just it gives off this like Terminator type of vibe, where it's like it'll protect these two no matter what the cost. And then like we get this awesome face reveal of Din Djarin, where IG-11's like fixing him up, and then Din Djarin's also like kind of racist towards droids, like, you know, racist, but he's a stigma against them, right, because of his childhood, which I love. But like him getting healed up and his life saved from this droid, it's like it makes him turn his thought process around, which I really like. But yeah, season 1 of The Mandalorian, I think, is top notch Star Wars television, right? Like, again, we're not getting a whole bunch of Star Wars content in terms of shows. We're starting to get there. We have a few now. But I just know when this came out, I was like, whoa, this was a mind blower. It's like to have Star Wars in this type of content of Star Wars is just different than we've ever seen, because we've always just had the movies, right? So at this point, I think we had Solo and Rogue One. So that was different enough on its own, just having these spin-off movies, like stepping away from the main saga. But this just takes you completely out of the main saga, at least for the first season. Like, learn to love these new characters that aren't named Skywalker, right? Or who's, like, heavily involved with Skywalker. But yeah, guys, I think that's gonna do it here. The Mandalorian season 1, top notch, love it. I look forward to getting more and more seasons of seeing Grogu and Mando together. Eventually, we're gonna get a movie made by Dave Filoni that is supposed to be the end of this universe, and I can't wait for that, because I have fallen in love with these characters throughout the years, because now we have 3 seasons of them. Kind of 3.5 seasons because of Book of Boba Fett, but we'll get into that later on. All right, guys, I'll catch y'all very soon. Make sure to like and subscribe, and have a good one. Bye-bye.